G'day there. Welcome to Faith, Culture, Politics in Australia with Mark. And if you want to follow independent media, want to support independent media, hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, if you'd like to support financially, you have the means. You've got the Buy Me the Coffee link there to be able to support us from there. So today I'm following up, caught up with Steven Tripp, President of Australians for Better Government, quite a few months ago, and I'm catching up with him again today just to get a bit of an update about Australians for Better Government, the upcoming event as well. And just to put a disclaimer out there, I'm obviously a committee member of Australians for Better Government, so just need to disclose that. But when I'm talking to Steven today, he'll be representing Australians for Better Government, and I'll be the host of the show today. So welcome on board again, Steven. Good to see you. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Mark. I'm glad to see you back in the podcasting game. I know you had a little bit of a break there and a little bit of a rebranding, but I like the new logo and the new format. So, I think we need more people like yourself in independent media, and you do such a good job with your podcast and getting information out there and being able to, platform people like myself to get important messages out there. So good to see you, mate. And, it's everything that you've contributed to Australians for Better Government is really commendable. I know when we had the interview last time, we didn't know each other from a bar of soap, but we got connected there, and then you helped us promote Australians for Better Government, and we in turn added you to the committee, and you've been a great addition. You're a real measured, stable influence on the committee, which I like, and you've done some great work and shown a lot of initiative. So, it's good to be able to work with you on Australians for Better Government. I think it is an important movement that we're trying to get across to Australia and spread the word and hopefully, slowly build and hopefully build some momentum as well.
Yeah, 100%. And, a lot of water's gone under the bridge already. Like there's just so much that happens in our country. And thank you for that, because, many of us, there's obviously some podcasters, some people that are in our space bringing information, the alternative information, not just the narrative of the mainstream. A lot of us are actually working full-time jobs and involved in other things. So a lot of us try to do this, out of hours, outside of hours, whenever we can, in between family and work commitments. But I guess a lot of us are just so passionate about what's going on in the country. We're seeing there's a lot of failures and looking to secure a better future, I guess, for our children and grandchildren. And we're just really seeing a lot of shortfalls there. So we're actually kind of going above and beyond normal hours, and a lot of the time for not much money either. Not like the massive media conglomerates that are funded by billions and millions of dollars, and we kind of sometimes run on the sniff of an oily rag. And it is what it is. I feel passionately enough about it to continue to do this for that reason, and it's hopefully for a better future for kids and grandkids. And I suspect that's the same for yourself. All the things that you're involved in is because you see there's a lot of failings within our country, and you want to sort of do that bit to set up a better future as well for your future, for your children and future generations, I guess.
And that's exactly what it is. I mean, there's moments where I'm just so busy and under the pump. I've got, so many rods in different fires, and you just think to yourself, I mean, is it all worth it? Like, I could be sitting on the beach, spending more time with my kids. I mean, that's a sacrifice that I have to make to hopefully give them a better future. But that's what it comes down to for me. I mean, in those, I guess, solitary moments where you're considering it all, I go back to the future for my children. Like, what does that look like? And at the moment, it doesn't look too good. At least from my perspective. So that's what motivates me and keeps me going forward, because I want my kids to grow up in a great country. And I think a lot of people, especially when you do have kids, that little, whatever it is, that biological, switch gets, turned on in your head. And you do start to think about legacy and what you're leaving behind for future generations, not just your kids, but your grandkids as well. You want them to grow up in a country that is at least as good as what you grew up in. And we do have a great country here. I mean, it's something that we should all want to protect. And, if you want your family to grow up in a country that's prosperous and an environment that's safe and where you're free, then you should want your country to also be prosperous and strong and free. And if you want that to happen, then you need to start focusing on government, because government is the big linchpin for all of it. And a lot of the problems that we're facing are the result of bad government. So if you do want good conditions, for yourself as an individual, but also for your family and for your country, then we really do need to start focusing on government. And I guess that's what we're trying to do with Australians for Better Government. And the journey that it's been taking us on it's evolving as we go along. In the beginning, we're just putting forward proposals that we would like to see happen. But as things have progressed, I've at least come to the realization that a lot of it's about education as well. I go to speaking events and I say to people, how many people here have read the Constitution? And you get a smattering of hands in the air, but not many people have. And you ask them questions specifically about the Constitution and the structure of our government, and people just don't know. And this is important stuff, and it's a big reason why our government isn't functioning as optimally as we would like it to. So there are a lot of components that are coming on board with what we're doing. Not only are we putting forward proposals that we would like to see implemented, but the educational side of things as well is now developing. And especially for our youth as well, I think, we've met so many great young kids along the way. We now have a youth ambassador in Cooper McCallum. He's only 17 years old. He spoke at our recent event on the Gold Coast. And I get so many emails from people saying, hey, I came to your Gold Coast event. I loved it. I especially loved Cooper. People want to see that younger generation come through with a lot of pride in the country, a lot of hope for the country. And our younger generations want to see a prosperous, safe, free country as well. So that's really what we're striving towards. And I can see this journey evolving even further as we go along, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's really good to see, because I think there's a lot of things lacking, like you mentioned, is that education is a massive thing. To bring civics sort of studies and education around, how government can be improved, or our political system can be improved. That should start, at a young age, to really help people understand what's going on. So when they actually do go out and vote, they realise how important it is, how lucky we actually are to have a democratic structure that allows people to go out and vote, because some countries actually don't have that. They're under dictatorial reigns or whatever, and or even corruption, and they don't have those options. So it's massively important. And ABG really has only been effectively going since January. Is that right? That was kind of when it was come about. So we're still very much in the infancy of an organisation. But how do you feel at the moment, from obviously January to kind of where we are now? There's been a few events as well. You just mentioned Callum. He spoke at one of the events as well. As a great young ambassador, youth ambassador for ABG. You want to give the audience a bit of sort of an update around how you felt those events went, and kind of where ABG is at in regards to growth of membership, and I see there's quite a bit of traction on Facebook and other sort of things. So you want to give the audience a bit of an update, kind of where you see it from January to where you are now?
Look, it's exceeded my expectations to the point where I almost feel like it's been a bit overwhelming, because you go into these things, you kind of want to, wade your way through things, grow slowly so you can do it properly. But no, the support has been tremendous, and it's really overwhelming. I mean, we had our first event in May in Sydney, and that was a great event. We had some great speeches by John Ruddick, who's a member of the New South Wales Upper House. We also had members of ABG speaking and putting across those views, and those views were very well received. And that rolled on to our event that happened on the Gold Coast only a month or so ago, and that event was sold out. I mean, it blew me away that we had such a great response from an area that I've lived on the Gold Coast about 15 years ago, but I don't have many ties there anymore. We had some people living around there, in, say, for example, Ballina and Gympie, but we didn't have anyone really directly on the Gold Coast. We did reach out to some people that helped promote that event, but the response was great. And I'm still getting emails from people that attended that event, and they really got a lot of value out of it. And I think that's what we're really trying to bring along. If people do come to our events, they walk away thinking to themselves, hey, I learned a lot. I thought about things differently. I had to invoke my critical thinking on certain topics that maybe I haven't thought about before or considered before. And that's really what we're trying to achieve with ABG. It's not like other political events that you go to. We're not a political party, so we're not going to stand up there talking about how great we are the whole time. It's really solutions-based discussion about what we can do to optimize our system of government. And now we're rolling into this event coming up on October 26th in Adelaide. And mate, you were the catalyst. You were the one that came to me and you said, I want to hold an event in Adelaide. I think people are going to love to hear from ABG in Adelaide. So it's exciting. I mean, to be able to travel the country now and speak about what we're proposing is incredibly exciting. And we're picking up new members all the time. We're picking up opportunities on different podcasting platforms and media outlets as well. So people are really receptive to the views that we're putting forward, and it really feels like we're on the right track and we're doing something that needs to be done here in this country. Because even some of the things that we talk about, most people say, "Hey, I've never considered that before." We can talk about it a little bit as we go along on the podcast today. But you just had the flyer up there for our Adelaide event. Sarah Game's going to be speaking. She's a member of the South Australian Upper House. She's just launched a new party, Fair Go for Australians. Henry Davis, who's a councillor on Adelaide City Council, he's part of that party as well. He's joined up with Sarah to launch that. I'm sure Sarah's going to be talking about the challenges that she's faced in the Upper House, representing minor parties, and how the system doesn't work optimally for those people. And look, I mean, she was elected by the people of South Australia to represent them, so she can talk about that aspect of our system. Michael Arbin, who, look, mate, you suggested him to me, and I didn't know him from a bar of soap, being here in Sydney, but I did reach out to a lot of people in Adelaide, and every single person that I spoke to, their first name out of their mouth was Michael Arbin. And I was like, wow, this guy must be someone amazing. And I looked into him, and he's a very well-spoken, intellectual, great thinker, a thought leader. So I'm really looking forward to what he has to say. Obviously, he's a political advisor to Senator Ralph Babet, so that's going to be interesting. And I suppose the main event will be Dr. Christopher Reynolds, or that's at least what he'll tell you, because I always get phone calls from Dr. Reynolds saying, "Hey, mate, you got to put me on last because I'm the most dynamic speaker." And look, he is. I mean, the speech that he gave on the Gold Coast was dynamic. It was fantastic. And some of those clips that we put out from his speech got over 250,000 views on social media because people are really receptive to what he's saying and what ABG is saying. So, look, I encourage anyone in Adelaide, if you're around Adelaide or you're living in Adelaide, please come along. I don't think that you'll regret coming to one of our events and hearing the information that we're putting forward. So, tickets are only $20. We'd love to see you there. So head to the website, AustraliansForBetter.com. It's got the link there, as you can see, the link down the bottom to take you to the Humanitics page. We'd love to see you there and help grow our movement because I think it's incredibly important.
Absolutely. So that's Sunday, October the 26th at 2 p.m. to 4:30, and that's at the Sporting Car Club of SA. And so why? So people obviously you've just talked about that, but so what's some of the other reasons that people, I guess, from Adelaide should come together and join an event like that? To come together to talk about those things. What are other important reasons you think?
Look, I think it says it in the name, defining a new direction for Australia. And we've called this event Revival. Now, why did we do that? I always try and give it a catchy name to get people interested. But when we secured the Sporting Car Club, and they've got a lot of old Australian cars that we used to race cars in this country. We used to manufacture cars in this country. And that's an industry that we've lost. And you told me about that, Mark. You said, hey, there's a lot of manufacturing that used to happen in Adelaide and we've lost that. We need to revive that. That's why we're calling this event Revival, because we need to revive parts of that of our country that we've lost. Why don't we produce cars anymore in this country? Why has so much of our manufacturing moved offshore? And look, I mean, there's economic things that are involved in that. Obviously, wages are cheaper overseas, but it's got a lot to do with the direction of our government. We need to start reviving some of these things in the best way that we can. So that's what I would really encourage people to think about when considering coming to one of our events, as I said, we're solutions based. Okay, if we really want to define a new direction for this country, then these events that we put on is really the start of it. I mean, it's like when they were talking about federation back in the late 1800s. I mean, they held conventions right around the country where they discussed what a federation might look like, what a constitution might look like, the direction that they wanted to take the country in. And that's really what we're trying to achieve with Australians for Better Government as well. What direction do we want to take Australia? And that, you know, a lot of that rests on the system of government that we have, and how effective that government is. And there's plenty of changes that we can make to our system that need to be considered and need to be talked about, and that's exactly what we're trying to do with these events. So yeah, if you're a bit disillusioned with politics and you're one of those disaffected people out there that you feel that no one's really representing you, I did say we're not a political party, but we can definitely have a lot of thought-provoking discussions to hopefully with more and more members and more people getting on board with us, really put pressure on the politicians that are in there to drive some of the changes that we're advocating for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's a really good opportunity for people to rub shoulders with other like-minded South Australians who really do, like you said, want to see some change. Because, again, before 2020, I wasn't politically motivated. I was, I was just getting on. And I think we've had this discussion before. And but since COVID and everything that come about from COVID, it's definitely made me sit back and think about, the direction of our country and I guess the influence and the power that government can have, in particular if it's not properly in check. And I think one of the things that are really, I think, critical is actually having, because there's a sort of thing that there's about 15 to 20% of Australians that are kind of politically motivated now, more so now since COVID. People are there and they're frustrated because they really have lost a voice. They've tried to talk out about things and they haven't had that voice. But unfortunately, there's still about 80% of people that just, for whatever reason, are kind of not interested in politics or just too busy with life and just captured, and they're just not or apathetic to it. And I guess this is where we need to change, because unfortunately what happens is we're going to continue to vote in, if apathetic voters aren't really aware of what's going on, we'll continue to vote in the same politicians and the same government, the exact same governments that are putting in terrible policies, which drag our country further into debt, help sign us up to international agreements where global corporations and think tanks and so forth have sway over the way that legislations put forward and passed. And if the more Australians are aware to that kind of input, then the more pushback can be enacted upon politicians that might be thinking, well, this is the right way. What can go wrong with having international players dictate how we function here in our country? So part of that is really just awakening the unawakened, I guess, as well, with information that we're sharing. Do you kind of have a bit of a thought on that?
Well, I heard Tucker Carlson speaking recently, and I mean, a lot of the issues that we're facing here in this country are being faced by other countries in the world. I mean, America, we're very similar in direction to the UK, I feel, and I speak to a lot of people in the UK. I mean, Lee Evans is on our committee, Mark. I mean, he's well respected in the UK. He speaks to all the politicians over there and is entrenched in their political system. And he said, constant meetings that he's been to where he's like, the issues that you're facing in Australia are exactly the issues that we're facing here in the UK. So Tucker Carlson went out and he was making a speech and he said, look, in the current political situation, I think there's two types of people. I mean, the people that just give up and become apathetic and they just say the system doesn't represent me. And then the other people, I guess, more like us, Mark, that become politically involved and try and change the system. And look, I think when people look at a current situation where a government can get elected on 34% of the vote and then basically have free reign over the government, people scratch their heads and go, well, how's this representing us? I mean, this is not really the system how the system should be working. And as I've gone along in Australians for Better Government. I mean, I thought I understood the system, but we've been gaslit all the way from our childhood. I mean, we always look to the Prime Minister as the leader of the country, and we look to all the ministers as, you know, the people that actually implement things and get things done. But when you actually look under the hood and you start scratching beneath the surface, you start realizing that some of this stuff doesn't make sense. And one of the things I like to do when I go and speak at events is I like to ask people questions. I ask them simple questions. As I said before, I ask them if they've read the Constitution. You know, you see a smattering of hands go up. But the next question I ask is, how many times is the Prime Minister mentioned in the Constitution? And they go, they don't know. And the answer is 0. The role of Prime Minister is not mentioned in our Constitution. The role of Governor General is mentioned plenty of times, but the Governor General is basically just a ceremonial position. Well, how does that happen? How do we have a constitution when the Governor General is mentioned a whole bunch of times? And if you read chapter 2 of the Constitution, which relates to the executive branch of government, it says that the Governor General is meant to be the head of the executive branch and is to exercise the power of the executive branch. Doesn't say anything about the Prime Minister, doesn't say anything about a cabinet, nothing like that. So how did we get into this situation? And the answer is the Westminster Conventions. Now, the Westminster Conventions are basically, you might say, are unwritten rules of how government is meant to operate. And they come up with fancy terms like responsible government, and you know, the ministers are accountable to the parliament, and blah, 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 blah. Well, why isn't this stuff in the Constitution? Why isn't it part of our structure? And the way that I recently spoken at a little meeting on the weekend that just passed, and I said, and it was grand final day. I mean, I know you guys have the AFL down in Adelaide. We have the NRL here in Sydney, and we had our grand final where Brisbane and Melbourne were playing each other. I might use the AFL analogy on your show. You know, just imagine you have a grand final and you've got the umpire in the middle of the ground. Well, the umpire represents the Constitution, and the Constitution is the laws and the structure for how the government's meant to operate. But then you've got the two teams. You've got the Geelong Cats and you've got the Brisbane Lions, and they say to each other, look, we know the umpire is going to be on the field and he's trying to enforce the rules of the Constitution, but we actually think we know how the game's it should be played, and we've got better rules for it. So we're going to start playing by our rules, and we're going to just ignore the umpire a little bit. And then you've got the crowd in the stadium who represents the Australian people. And they're sitting there going, look, I just want to eat my meat pie, drink a beer, and watch these blokes rip their heads off. And that's pretty much, I think, a good analogy of how our system operates. I mean, we've got a situation where the Prime Minister is not even mentioned in our Constitution, yet the Prime Minister acts as an autocrat. He's the head of the government in the legislature. He tells his party what to do in the Senate. And then he runs the executive branch of government as well, tells the Governor General what to do, selects the Governor General, and then also appoints all the ministers and at times appoints the judges to the courts. So how did we get this role of Prime Minister, again, not mentioned in the Constitution, but now has all this power throughout our system? And this is the sort of stuff that people, they've been gaslit. They don't question this stuff. They just accept it as this is the way it is. We have a prime minister, and that's the system. And Dr. Christopher Reynolds points out, look, I mean, our system, if you read the Constitution, is very similar to the American system. They don't have a prime minister in their house. They have a speaker. The speaker runs the house. So these are the questions that I put to people. Now, a lot of people might say, well, look, we think it's sensible to have a prime minister. And we think it's sensible to have a prime minister sitting in the legislature, in the parliament, running the government. Okay, well, let's put that to the Australian people. Maybe let's have a referendum to establish the role of prime minister in our Constitution. If we're serious about being a country, and if we're serious about governing ourselves, and if we're serious about having a constitution that works, maybe we should put that in the Constitution. But I think we need to make the arguments as to why having a prime minister would be advantageous, and why it's so dangerous to have a prime minister that's stretched out across the different branches of government. And I think a lot of people might be scratching their heads going, what was he talking about, branches of government? Now we're talking about separation of powers. So we're meant to have 3 branches of government, and you put out a great video about this, Mark, and I encourage everyone to head to the ABG YouTube page and look at those videos that Mark produced with your friend, which, you know, with some really high quality stuff. We're meant to have the 3 branches: the legislature, which is the parliament, the House of Representatives, and the Senate. Now, the legislature is where you create laws or amend laws. And then you have the executive, which is meant to be where you implement the laws. That's where all the ministers are, the heads of the departments, the bureaucrats, where they actually, you know, you might have the Department of Defense or the Department of Education or whatever it might be to implement those laws that come through from the legislature. And then you have the judiciary. That's the 3rd branch of government, which is the courts, and that interprets the laws to make sure that they're lawful within the Constitution and everything like that. And as I said, we now have a situation where the Prime Minister's got his grubby little hands in every branch of those branches of government. And COVID proved how dangerous that could be. I mean, this didn't get talked about enough because Scott Morrison was out of the role as Prime Minister when it was revealed. But you may remember that during COVID, he started appointing himself to different ministries. He had a whole host of ministries that he just appointed himself to. And what we're saying at Australians for Better Government is we need a system that stops that from happening. We cannot have our Prime Minister, who's meant to only be in the legislature, being able to control the executive branch of government as well. There needs to be a separation. That's what the whole concept of separation of powers is all about. Read the Constitution, read Chapter 2 about the executive branch of government. It says that the Governor-General is meant to be the head of the executive branch. It's meant to be running the executive branch. And we say to get to a situation where we think that's effective, then the government should not be selecting the Governor-General. The Australian people should be electing the Governor-General. The Australian people elect the Governor-General, and then the Governor-General, I suppose if you want to understand the concept, would act similar to what a president does in America. It's a very similar system to what they have in America. So we would have a Governor-General that runs the executive branch of government. Then there's a separation between the legislature and the executive, and you have a conflict of ideas and a conflict of accountability as well. So you can't have a prime minister running as an autocrat pushing through laws like digital ID and misinformation and disinformation laws and censorship laws with impunity. You actually have a check and a balance there, and we need to build more checks and balances into our system. So these are some of the things that we talk about at ABG, and hopefully some of the things that we flesh out at our events as well. And as I said, a lot of these things come down to the Westminster system, and there's a lot more that we can talk about as well, Mark.
Oh, absolutely. And there's something, it's up to the people as well. And just to clarify for people that may not have heard, that might not be privy to what we're talking about in returns to legislature and executive and all that. So, legislature, and you can correct me if I'm wrong anyway, is your members of parliament that are in your electorates that are meant to represent the people in the electorate. So, that's the legislature. So the people that sit there. The executive is the ministers, like Minister for Health, Minister for Finance, Minister, and so those people are meant to be part of the executive, but also people currently the way it is that your member of parliament can be chosen by the premier or the prime minister to sit as a minister in the executive. So they hold the position of being a member of parliament that's meant to represent you at the constituent level, at the electorate level, but then also has a dual role of being an executive in the government, and that in itself is really taking away the role of the elected member, of how they meant to be representing the constituents. So the executive should be totally separated. And this is what we're talking about, the separation of powers. But it goes a step further, because the videos also explain, and you've talked about this in detail as well previously, is the actual legislative council and the Senate should be separate. And we recommend that the Senate and the legislative council should be non-party affiliate, and which means that there's a lot more checks and balances, because as you've discussed, we've seen lots of bills being rammed through because the government of the day holds the legislature, plus the Senate, the upper house, in that regard. And so whatever bills get put forward, if they hold the control in both, then they just get rammed through. But
Mm.
if you have kind of minor parties or even independents sitting in the Legislative Council or the Senate, you have a lot more checks and balances, in that regard. Is that kind of how we've got it right? Is that we've got it right for the viewers to kind of the way I've explained that?
No, you do, and I mean, I guess the problem is a lot of people haven't heard this stuff before, so we're probably hitting people with information that it might be going over their heads. But stick with us because this stuff's important, and hopefully you can come along this journey with us to flesh this out. And the more that you hear about it, the more you understand it. It is a system that everyday Australians can understand, provided they're given the information for it. Now, what you're talking about are two separate things. So let's talk about the upper houses first, and that's the Senate in the federal parliament and the legislative councils in state parliaments. Now, Queensland doesn't have a legislative council. That's another issue for another time. We think that legislative council should be re-established. So you do have a separation between the upper and lower houses. But to focus on the federal and state governments and councils as well, we also think that councils should be independents and party affiliation should be banned. And obviously, this is just our proposal. We're going to put it to the Australian people and let the Australian people decide. But why do you need political parties in the upper house? Why do you need political parties in the Senate or the legislative councils? These houses are meant to be the houses of review. So the House of Representatives is where the government is formed, and they will propose a law. So say, for example, Anthony Albanese goes to the election. They say, well, we want to bring in a digital ID. Well, I don't think he did that, but let's go along with it because that seems to be the direction that we're heading in. Or they want to ban under 16s from using social media. Okay, so they put that law through the lower house. The situation at the moment is that you have a lot of Labor people that have been elected in the Senate. So Anthony Albanese just says to them, hey, you need to vote along these lines. You might have a different view, a personal view that's against it, but because you're part of a party, you have to vote as one block. Now, we say that is not how the House of Review is meant to operate. Senators and MLCs in the state parliament should be judging the bills that come through from the House of Representatives on the merits of those bills, not based on their party affiliation. And it goes both, the door swings both ways as well. You might have a minor party person sitting in the upper house. Like a good example was Ralph Bett recently put through an amendment to push for free speech to be enshrined in the Australian Constitution. Basically, let's put a referendum to the people, allow the Australian people to decide whether free speech should be enshrined in the Constitution. And that got blocked because purely and simply, they don't like the United Australia Party. They don't like the party that Ralph Bett represents. Now, if the Senate was all independents and you ban political affiliation, there might be some people that may be on the left side of politics, maybe on the Labor side of politics. They might go, well, that's a fair proposal. I'm going to support that. They don't have the pressure of their party looming over them to say to them, hey, you have to vote along these lines. So we think that's a more optimal system of our government's functioning, where we just ask a simple question: why do we need political parties in the upper houses? I don't think we do, and we want to make that case to the Australian people. And I think that question should be put to the Australian people in a referendum, where we say, do you want political parties in the upper house or not? And I think most people, once those arguments are put to them, would make the sensible decision of saying, no, we want the upper house to be all independent so people can vote based on the merits of that legislation. Now, the other issue that you talked about were how ministers get selected. And I was picking on the Westminster system before. Now I'm going to actually pick on the Constitution, because there's one line in our Constitution that completely wrecks our system of government, and that's in section 64. It's the ministers to sit in Parliament line. And what that line says is that ministers are to be selected from the House of Representatives or the Senate. Now, how can you have a separation of powers where you have the executive branch of government where the ministers are meant to be, and you're having to select those ministers out of the suboptimal lot that are sitting in the legislature? Now, I say it's suboptimal because a lot of these people that are getting elected to our parliaments have no experience in the private sector or the real world. Take someone like Richard Marles, who is our current defense minister. The bloke joined the Union Club in his first week of university. If you look at his progression throughout his career, he's basically been a union hack the whole way through. He had no experience in the private sector before getting elected to Parliament in 2007. So what does he know about the pressures that the Australian people are under? How does he know what it's like to operate a small business, or have to pay payroll tax, or things like that, or to operate under the government pressures of regulations and red tape and green tape and whatever that comes along? Now he's Minister for Defence. I mean, John Ruddock said at one of our recent events in Sydney, the bloke probably doesn't even know how to fire a gun. What does he know about defence? I mean, has he had any experience in defence prior to being in Parliament? And the answer is no, he hasn't. So this is a situation that's brought about because of this one line in the Constitution. Now we say, let's go to a referendum. Let's make this argument to the Australian people and put to the Australian people, do you want to take a big red pen and put a line through that part of the Constitution and remove it from our Constitution? So now the Governor-General can say, okay, well, I'm going to select the Minister of Defence, and I have the opportunity to go out into the broader Australian community and select the most suitable person that I can find out of everyone. So he can go into defence, someone that's been in the Defence Forces their whole life, like someone like Peter Cosgrove, who was the son of a soldier, trained at Duntroon, fought in Vietnam, led Interfet when we went into East Timor, has been a general, has been the head of the army, has been, he's done it all, right? That would be a suitable candidate for someone who should be Minister of Defence. Now, he might say, look, I'm too old, I don't want to do it. It's just an example of the quality that we could have heading that department. And you can go through the whole government and the whole ministry at the moment. I mean, Chris Bowen, he was elected to council, I think it was 1995 off the top of my head. The bloke's been in council and then in federal politics the whole way through. What would he know about the energy sector? He hasn't worked in the energy sector. He's not a climate scientist, but now he's the climate change and energy minister, and he's responsible for this rollout of net zero. And what experience does he have in this sector? He goes and makes these videos where he acts like an expert and he knows what he's talking about. How could he possibly know what he's talking about? The Governor-General should have the opportunity to go into the energy sector, select a suitable candidate, maybe a former electrical engineer or someone like that, to now be the minister of that department. And also finance. I mean, Katie Gallagher is finance minister now. What does she know about the finance sector? She was elected to the ACT Parliament. She worked as she worked in the public sector. I mean, she has no experience of finance. I mean, these are the people that are heading our departments down in Canberra, heading ministries. I mean, and people say that the whole country is run by bureaucrats. Well, it has to be, because what do these parliamentarians know anything about the departments that they're running? So we say remove that line from the Constitution and allow the Governor-General to now go out into the broader Australian community and select people that are qualified in those departments to head those departments. Again, very similar to what they do in the United States of America, where they might look at someone and say, well, you have experience in that field. You're not a member of the Parliament or the Congress, but we think that you would be a suitable person to head that department, to be the minister. And then the Governor-General or the President, in the case of the United States, nominates that person to the Senate to be rubber stamped and checked off to make sure it's a suitable person. And then we move ahead. That's a proposal that we're putting forward that we think will optimize our system of government. And this is the sort of stuff that we're all about.
Yeah, rather than selecting people, job for the boys and job for the girls, people that have started their career in maybe council. And this is, the same what you mentioned about the party affiliation in councils. They start off at council, they get into, they become a staff or an admin person, and all they ever know through their whole life is bureaucracy, and not so much what affects people in the real world, coming from real world lived experience. And it just makes sense to have people that are responsible for portfolios that actually know those portfolios intimately and have had the lived experience rather than just being thrown into that. So no, 100%, and just it makes so much sense to have that, and that that non-party affiliation in the Senate and the Legislative Council. So yeah, well done on explaining that for the Australian people and the viewers. And you did mention about Ralph Babet, recommending about coming to a referendum. But we often also talk about the idea that Australians should have the opportunity to go to citizen-initiated referendums, and they should have more say in regards to if someone's not performing. We should, as voters, have the opportunity to be able to oust someone that isn't performing to the standard as what we're electing them for. So, and all these sort of things tend not to be discussed in mainstream media or mainstream political sort of conversations. But the power does absolutely belong with the people, but they've almost made it flip on its head and made people think that the government is big daddy and big mummy, and they know what, and unfortunately the cause of that is that people have allowed that to happen. They go, well, we don't want to think about this, it's all too hard, so we're just going to get government to make the decisions for us. And for people, free thinkers or critical thinkers or people that value their freedoms and liberties, that's an absolute the destruction of those freedoms and liberties. So we want kind of our fellow man to go, look, it might be a bit tough to be involved, but we want you involved. We don't want government to making decisions about what you can watch, how to raise your children, what you can do and see and spend your money on, and all this sort of stuff, which is ultimately where we're getting to. So it's a massive concern, and we should have the ability to be able to, in some form, oust the government or oust the ministers that aren't doing their job. What do you reckon?
Look, I mean, as I said in the beginning, if you want a country where you're individually free, individually prosperous, individually, able to, live your life how you want it to live, same thing for your family and same thing for your country, then you need to start getting active in government, at least paying attention to politics and government. I know people might cringe when they hear that, but people need to get more involved. And citizens-initiated referendum or referenda is another example of that. I mean, if people want to push for a referendum and change the constitution, well, that's a mechanism with enough support. I mean, you have to get a lot of support. There has to be a trigger for a citizens initiated referendum. It can't be just one person saying, hey, let's have a referendum on this. No, you actually have to get public support to a certain level. And, let's have that discussion on what that level should be. But I think that's a mechanism that we should have in our system. I mean, it's worked in other countries overseas. Let's look to those examples. Let's look where it's worked. Let's look to where it hasn't worked, for example, and let's discuss that. And then let's put that to the Australian people. If we rely on our politicians to drive change in this country, nothing will ever happen. Look, I mean, let's go back to when the Constitution was written. I think it was Dr. Christopher Reynolds that said this. They wrote the Constitution. They went to a referendum around all the different states in the country to see if the people wanted that constitution. They voted for it. But then the politicians never read it. They just automatically went back to the Westminster system and went on their merry way. And no one has really come along since that has tried to hold them accountable. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with ABG. Let's start looking at this stuff. Let's start considering these things. Let's start holding the politicians accountable for our system of government. And if we do want change, then it needs to be a people's movement. It needs to be a grassroots movement. And that's hopefully what our movement is. It's let's bring along the Australian people with us. Let's educate them. Let's put these proposals to them. You may disagree with some of our proposals. That's great, because it's not up to us. It's up to the Australian people to decide on whether or not they want to go along with it. I mean, all the stuff we're talking about will probably ultimately have to go to a referendum anyway. So the Australian people will have to decide. But CIR is another example of Australia, the everyday people having the power to influence our system and our pathway forward. Same thing with recall elections. I mean, that's something that operates in California. Is it working? Is it not working? Well, let's have that discussion. If we elect someone that we don't think is performing, then we should have the option to be able to recall them and go to another election. I think the people of the UK would love to have recall elections right now because they have 5-year terms over there. Keir Starmer's still in his first year. He's got 4 years to go. I mean, I think the British people would be clawing at the chance to have a recall election. So we need to consider these things, put them in our system as a safeguard mechanism. If you've got a person that's elected to your electorate and they've promised all these things, but when they've got into Parliament, they've gone in a completely different direction, then the people should have the opportunity to then recall them and go to a new election, go to a by-election, whatever it might have to be. So these are safeguards that we could definitely put in place. I mean, the other thing is binding plebiscites that we talk about on our website as well and in our prospectus, where I think critical decisions should be put to the Australian people. For example, do we want to sign up to international treaties? Do we want to be part of international bodies? I mean, the Australian people will never ask whether or not we want to be a member to the United Nations. Now, the Australian people might say, yes, it's sensible to be a member of the United Nations, but then let's put that to a vote. Let's see if the Australian people really do want that. Do we want to be part of the World Health Organization? Let's put that to a plebiscite. Let's see if people want that. Do we want to sign up to a free trade agreement with Korea or the United States or China or Japan or wherever it might be? Again, let's put that plebiscite to the Australian people. The same thing with raising the debt ceiling. At the moment, the government can spend as much money as it wants, and it never asks the Australian people how much the debt ceiling should be. That's never put to us at an election. And basically, the situation right now, you've got both parties, the Liberal Party and then the Nationals on one side and Labor and the Greens on the other, that just want to spend as much money as they want. There's no effort to bring down the debt or to get us back into surplus. So we should be able to go to a plebiscite where we ask the Australian people, firstly, where do you want to set the debt ceiling? Do we say, okay, we can have $1 trillion of debt, but no, you're not going above that, no way at all. And if the government exceeds that, and we already have exceeded that level, but I'm using it as an example. If the government does exceed that level of debt without the approval of the Australian people, then a double dissolution is triggered and the parliament is dissolved and we go to a new election. I mean, these are some of the safeguard mechanisms that we should have in place. I mean, you could even make the argument for immigration. The Australian people have never been asked what an adequate level of immigration is. I know there's a lot of pushback. We've had marches recently, pushing back against mass immigration. I mean, the majority of the Australian people might say, yes, we support immigration. We want open borders, whatever it might be. But let's put that question to the people. I mean, and let the people decide. Some people might say open borders, bring them all in. Other people might say, no, let's cut immigration altogether. Let's have a freeze on immigration for 5 years, like John Ruddock's saying here in New South Wales. So, I mean, these are some of the things, again, they're not put to us at election time. You've got a uni party where both political parties, or at least both major parties, agree on these issues and just go ahead, and there's no opportunity for the Australian people to push back. Well, let's bring in mechanisms where the Australian people can push back and have more of a say.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned about the UK and wanting to probably oust Keir Starmer at the moment, but I know that there's a petition going around at the moment, even in Australia, about a lack of confidence in the Prime Minister, and it's reached over 100,000 signatures already as well, and I think they've still got a few days to go. So there's a lot of Australians that are actually unhappy with the way the current government, and even though the elections only happened recently, but there's a lot of because they make all these promises, but then full steam ahead into some policies that actually people are realizing are not for the benefit of the nation, and I guess, and not wanting to go too far away from what we're talking about with ABG and the mission, but you really made a valid point about the frustration of Australians and attending those rallies and that. And we're seeing a lot of polarization by media and our government officials in regards to people that attend those. And we often see these, people that are, really just concerned, conservative kind of minded people that can see a lot of things going wrong, and they're painted as far right or a racist or all these things for attending these rallies. And then we have another portion of people that are just so lacking in confidence in government. And we mentioned about, the clause in the Constitution. We mentioned about the Prime Minister not being in there. And there's an element in our society that's obviously so frustrated with government and feel their voice has been taken away from them over 5 years, that they actually do have anti-government sentiment and anti-government rhetoric in their conversations. But what the unfortunate thing I'm seeing, and the dangerous thing I'm seeing, is that media and our current politicians are painting these people with a label, and it's generally painted as sovereign citizen, and to make them out to be this real, and they've used a couple of examples of people, and obviously there's a lot behind the scenes of that, but they're lumping hundreds of thousands of Australians who are genuinely concerned about the lack of accountability and transparency in government, and lumping them all in the same boat. So they use these labels to make the rest of Australians that are just getting their news from the mainstream media look to be conspiracy theorists, whether you be an anti-vaxxer or whether you be a sovereign citizen or whatever. So this is a really dangerous place to be with currently Labor and Liberal not calling that out and allowing the media to continue with that kind of rhetoric. What are your thoughts on that? And is it valid that people are just so frustrated with government and that they would have anti-government concerns?
Look, I think it's happening right across the spectrum. I mean, there's people on the left side of politics that are incredibly frustrated as well. I mean, they go out and protest all the time. And I mean, that's a function of our society should be able to peacefully assemble and let your views be known. I mean, that's part of the political process as well, as long as you do it peacefully and you're not causing any trouble or creating any damage. So, look, I mean, Australians for Better Government are non-partisan. Now, myself, Steven Tripp, I lean towards the right, and I don't think that's a secret. But hopefully there's sensible people in the Labor Party, and there's sensible people in the Greens, and sensible people in the Teals, and whatever your political affiliation might be, who are listening to our proposals and saying, look, I might not agree with you on policy, but when it comes to government structure, I think you're making a valid point. And I think we need to bring people across the political spectrum with us. I mean, after all, we are one country, and we are wanting everyone represented, whether we agree with them or not. Everyone should be represented in government, and government should work for them. We shouldn't be just painting a certain group of people as crazy people and nutters, and they should be kicked out of society and cast aside. That's not how our system's meant to be. Now you're moving to a more authoritarian, socialist, communist sort of system where, those systems are great if you want to live within the utopia. But if you don't want to live within the utopia, well, how do you fit into those societies? Then suddenly you end up in a re-education camp, or you end up in a workers' camp or something like that. And this is what happens in those sorts of countries that operate that way, because you have this singular view that's put forward by the government on how you should live. And if you step outside that, then suddenly you're punished. And I don't think that's the way that's definitely not the direction that we should go in this country. I mean, we're seeing that already in the UK, where people are putting Facebook posts out, and suddenly they're getting arrested and put in jail. I mean, we're meant to put free speech on a pedestal in our countries. I mean, we always thought that it was protected. We're sadly finding out that it's not. So I think we need to get back to first principles of what kind of society we want to live in. I think we want a free society. We want a society where people are allowed to express their views, even if they are expressing views that are offensive to people. I mean, I think it's up to the everyday adult and everyday Australian out there to make their own discernment on whether those views are acceptable or not. And if you do have someone that's expressing views that you don't agree with, then just don't pay attention to them. Ostracize them if you have to. I mean, just give them no oxygen at all. But unfortunately, if we want to live in a free society, then those people should be allowed to express their views, as long as they're not calling for, killing people or anything like that. I think that should be I don't think that's acceptable. But then again, I'm also a free speech absolutist. I mean, how can you have free speech if you start drawing lines of where you shouldn't be crossing? So look, I mean, this is a slippery slope that we're going down. And I suppose that's why countries like America have it enshrined in their constitutions. They have a Bill of Rights and they say, well, look, this is a line you just cannot pass, because it does become a slippery slope. Who decides what's misinformation? Who decides what's disinformation? Who decides what's acceptable free speech? Who decides what's not acceptable free speech? And I don't think you can without having an authoritarian system. So, look, I think people are entitled to express their views as long as they're not hurting anyone, or as long as they're not out there protesting and causing damage. We don't want to see people firebombing or anything like that. We all need to be able to understand that we all live in this country together. We do have opposing views. I mean, there's even opposing views on our side of politics, on the right side of politics. We see a fragmentation of all the different minor parties. I mean, there's even fragmentation sometimes on our ABG committee, Mark. I mean, it's just human nature that sometimes people disagree, but we need to be able to come to some sort of resolution or understanding that people do have those views. And if you don't want to be around people that express views that you can't live with, then you part ways. But I don't think we should be putting people. I don't think we should be in a situation where government is dictating, or even the media is dictating on who has acceptable views and who doesn't. I mean, I think that's a very dangerous path, and one path that we need to resist at every available opportunity.
Yeah, no, well said, and it needs a bit of restraint from politicians currently to just use the labels of crooked or crackpot against people that have opposing views. I think we need a bit more professionalism in that regard, and obviously this is what we're looking to be able to facilitate for Australians, I guess, with ABG, is that if Australians believe that we should have a Bill of Rights, then let us help you be a mechanism to kind of start that conversation and look at whether we can go to a referendum to put a Bill of Rights in for this nation. But the only way that you can do that is by obviously becoming a member of Australians for Better Government and get involved with the conversations, attend the meetings, check out what we're all about, and come along for a journey, because that's obviously what we're trying to do, and it's in the name of the organisation, Australians for Better Government. So that's what we're trying to do. So if people do want to find out more, obviously, Stephen, we've got our prospectus there on the Australians for Better Government website, so people can download that. So this is the main page of Australians for Better Government, and that people can download and really check out that prospectus. And obviously, if they want to, they can see about our the mission as well. So you'll see all the missions there, which is obviously reforming the Constitution, ensuring a true separation of powers, improving the quality of the vote, and enshrining our freedom and direct democracy. So those are all the things. Just, I guess, as we're getting ready to wind up, Stephen, what do you think for you? Like, we've got the missions there; they all seem to be very important in themselves. But out of those, what do you think is one of the most critical ones that we'd really like to get people to really think about and get behind as far as how the missions go?
Look, I think it's just the overall umbrella view that people need to get more active in our system, and people need to understand our system, understand how it operates. And as I said in the beginning, I think our mission is heading more towards the educational route, because a lot of people they don't understand this stuff. And I mean, it might seem complex and hard to understand when you first hear about it, but I think it's incredibly important that we do discuss these things. I think the issues that we discussed today are incredibly important, and they're all on the website. And I think we need to flesh the website out as well to obviously, as we go along, Mark, we're learning at the same time and picking up on things that we might not have considered when we first went into that. I think that's a healthy way of our movement evolving and moving forward. I mean, I'm sure we're going to get to the 10-year point one day and we'll look back and we'll go, wow, what a journey we've been on. And we want people to come along this journey with us. I mean, if you're not in Adelaide, obviously we're plugging the Adelaide event. We want people to come along to that. But if you're not in Adelaide, sign up to be a member. I mean, if you are in Adelaide, sign up to be a member as well. But we're going to be holding events right around the country. We've been asked to do our next event in Coffs Harbour. And hopefully we'll get down to Melbourne at some point, in Victoria or Western Australia. I mean, we want to take this message right around the country, and to be able to do that, we need people to sign up to be members, to support us, to come along this journey with us. So that's my main message to people. Jump on the website, check out what we're about, check our proposals, and sign up to be a member. Help us spread the word. Mark said we've got a very good prospectus that you can look at on the website. It's a PDF document. You can download it. You can share it out to your email list or social media or wherever you have to do it. I mean, we rely on people like everyone watching to help support us. I mean, we can only do so much. As you said, we all have lives as well. We're working full time, and I know you're working just before we came on today. So we're sacrificing valuable time out of our own lives to do this, and we think it's important, and that's why we do it. But hopefully people watching also see the value in it and see how important it is as well, and you come along with us, and you come along this on this journey. So look, I mean, I guess the most important things is understanding how our system works, understanding some of the proposals that we're putting forward, and I think another avenue that we're going to be heading towards as well is to really encourage our youth. Really encourage the young people to learn about civics. We're going to be pushing for civics to be taught in schools. We've got some ideas about that. Very exciting ideas with that. Hopefully we can flesh those out. I mean, they're very time consuming to try and set them up. So it is going to take us some time to get there, but hopefully we can get there in the new year and really push forward with that. But I also think that we need to address our culture here in this country. I think we need to protect our view of ourselves, and I think that's being demonized a lot. We're told that we should be guilty, for being who we are, and I don't think that's right. I think we should be very proud of being Australian and being able to live in this country and to celebrate what's occurred in this country over the last few hundred years. I mean, a great civilization has been built on the back of a lot of hard work and sacrifice, and that's never talked about. So I think that's another aspect of Australians for Better Government that needs to be talked about. Why do we need a good system of government? I mean, what is it all about? And as I said in the beginning, if you want to live in a country where you as an individual can prosper and be free and be safe, as well as your family, I mean, you need a strong country, and to have a strong country, you need a strong government. And that's what we're all about. So, I mean, we do have a lot of messages. It's hard to kind of put them in one tight little, grab that can get out there. But we do face a lot of complex issues. Hopefully, we're making them far less complex by talking about them, and people can really understand our message and get on board and support us.
Yeah, no, great stuff. And obviously, people, if you want to get involved, if you like what you've heard and jump on board, then obviously you can look at being a member. But if you're in South Australia, obviously you can come and join us. You can meet Steven Tripp in person. I'll be there, and obviously that'll be it's $20 for the ticket. It's not going to break the bank. I know it is a bit tough out there, but $20 should be manageable. And that's Sunday, October the 26th here, only a few weeks away from 2 o'clock to 4:30 at the Sporting Club of SA. Some great speakers, and not just an opportunity to hear the speakers, which are great obviously as well, but it's for like-minded South Australians to come together and really get to know each other, and that they share the same sort of views and values, and want to promote obviously improving all those things that we've talked about in our mission in regards to Australians for Better Government, and an opportunity to move forward. So no, good on you. Thanks again for the time spent today, Steven. I know that you and I are both busy, as we mentioned, with other stuff, but it's always good to catch up and get the message out there for our fellow Australians, and in particular South Australians, obviously, who I represent and speaking into as well. So good on you, mate, and thank you very much again.
Yeah, look, mate, I think you raised a good point. I mean, these events are good networking opportunities. You're going to meet a lot of like-minded people, and hopefully we can get a good group of people across the political spectrum. I'd love to see some people that may support the Labor Party or the Greens to come along and also check us out, and we can all mingle together and hopefully come up with some like-minded views on the direction of the country. So I think it's an incredibly important event. I do encourage everyone to come along, and these networking opportunities are incredibly important. I mean, even doing this podcast with you, Mark, I mean, I met you as a result of your podcast, and we've been able to develop a working relationship together. I mean, it's a way of networking as well. And I mean, you're on the ABG committee now, doing some great work and some very valuable work as well. And we wouldn't be coming to South Australia if it wasn't for you, mate. So it's all fitting together. I think a lot of good people across the country are coming together to try and steer our country in the right direction, and that's incredibly positive and incredibly powerful. So this is just another piece of that puzzle as we go along.
Yeah, good on you, mate, and well done for all the work that you do behind the scenes. It's you're juggling a lot of hats, and we obviously didn't talk too much about the other things because we're focusing obviously on the event, but you are involved in a lot. So if people want to find out more, they can check out Steven on Commanding the Narrative, which is on all the platforms, and as well you're also involved with Let's Rethink Renewables and some other things. So yeah, good on you for and as we said earlier when we started, it's all about creating a better future for our children and grandchildren. So good on you, mate, for everything that you're doing. So all the best, and hope you have a great afternoon, mate. Talk soon.
You too, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
No, too easy, mate. All the best. And if you want to see more of this, support, click like and subscribe, share as far and wide as you can. If you'd like to support independent media, put out like this, long form discussions about things that affect our country, by all means consider buying me a coffee as well. But for now, obviously, I'll leave you with a bit of a tune, like I always do, a bit of Christian blues to see out the show. So going to put that up for you now, and hope you have a blessed day.
Ship, the sea was wide, disciples with Jesus on the other side, but the winds grew fierce and the waves rose high. The boat was tossed beneath the blackened sky. Lord, we perish, they cried aloud, as lightning danced and thunder growled. But Jesus slept in perfect peace till he arose and the storm did cease. He stood up strong in that raging tide, said, "Why are ye fearful, O ye of little pride?" He rebuked the winds and spoke to the sea, and all fell silent immediately. The sea was calm, the air turned light, from deepest fear to morning bright. They marveled then with trembling voice, what manner of man is this choice? Even the winds and waves obey. When he speaks, night turns to day. No force of nature can withstand the voice of God, the Savior's hand. So when your storm begins to rise, call on the one who calms the skies. He's in the boat, he's near, he's real, and he still whispers, peace be still.